Oh yeah.
Uh-oh, look.
There we
TJ,
go.
you're muted.
Still
Hey,
can't.
there you go. Good start to the show, gang.
There we go.
I was going to say, Tony knows all about the South Bend Shovel Slayer. Have you seen him out about it at all?
Well, I mean, never at the same time as I was there, but I don't know.
You know, he used to be a driver.
Huh, I used to be a driver.
The optimal word, used to.
Just had a dually. We're in a hot shot. RVs right out of Elkhart. Hey, guys, we are live, and it's good to see you guys again. We got, hey, we're gonna do a little bit of a spotlight show here today. I'm a main man, Luis Claudio. And I think it's a good one, right? It's something that me and him have talked about. You know, he's seen me. I think one thing that he got a little bit of, you know, when I was running our fleet was how I dealt with the brokers that we had to get, you know, loads back with. And, you know, so this isn't just for brokers or drivers or shipper, you know, it's for carriers, dispatchers too, you know, how to deal with, you know, what to get, what you need and how to get it. And it all comes down to the same thing I always talk about and everything comes down to this is whether or not you're playing the long game or not. And it's so hard though, guys. And it's one thing I've really tried to preach. And if you can get them to buy in, you know, I think about my career, I probably could have made more money quicker. I know I could have, right? And
right.
done things differently. If I would have done things, you know, a little bit shady, you know, it may even have, to be honest with you, you know, hindered a little bit of my advancement. At least, you know, I wouldn't be in the position I'm in now, though, and it wouldn't have lasted as long as it has and built like it did if I wasn't playing it the right way. So these are things you got to do because you build those relationships. You know, Luis maybe wouldn't even have liked me as a director of the fleet, you know, and then me and him would have the relationship. He would be on here. So these little things like this make a big difference. You know, not only in, you know, with relationships and whatnot, but also in just your career in general. So, you know, as a broker, it's something you got to be, you know, pay attention to. Accessorials are to most just a side thing, something you don't think too much about, something's kind of a pain in the ass, to be honest. I'll tell you what,
True.
You know, I was on a call today, you know, a discovery call with a shipper, and, you know, we talked a lot about becoming a core carrier, right? And those things that you do that are a little bit extra that make their job easier, the billing, the invoices, all these things like this, and, you know, also helping them, you know, create a more efficient process, you know, is key. And so it really is. And it's what they're looking for. It's why they want to be a preferred shipper. But they also want core carriers too. So you can build to that. But hey, listen, we got Luis Claudio on here. Hey, he's been at Columbia the last couple of weeks, so sometimes he's got a little bit of bad Wi-Fi going, but he made sure this week he was on it because he's gonna light into it. Great part is we're gonna get Tony's take two from the shipper standpoint. And then also with Tony too, he has a lot of drayage needs. So I mean, if anybody out there moves drayage, works drayage, anything like that, if you know anything about drayage,
Zero. We don't dray anything. He just likes to blow up my inbox.
He'll text me during the week with a screenshot of people like reaching out to him about drayage, and he's like, "I hate you."
His name says
times
zero drayage needed.
It's so good.
He does 10 a day. Does 10 a day. So,
and the Bodacious Cowboy, you know, with the radical mustache there, he's going to be able to give some shipper insights too. However, you know, also, you know, on the brokerage side, and you know, I'm going to kind of give both. I've kind of been all over. So, hey, get in the comments. I want to put some up there. You know, questions too as well, things like that too. So we want to see a lot of people involved. But let's start off with Luis. Luis, why don't you touch base a little bit on right off the bat? Let's just kind of get this rolling with what sparked that post the other day. Was it something you ran into here recently?
So yeah, it was. I'm still dealing with it. Like in Colombia, I'm still dealing with that load. So I ran a load from a customer I've done a bunch of these for, and I understand the receiver and the shipper. Like it's great on both ends. I typically will take it because it's, you know, picks up from Fort Wayne right by the house. They're great at the pick, and typically you're hit or miss at the drop. But if you've been there enough, you know that, you know, you could spend up to 8 hours. I've spent up to 10 hours at the drop, you know, at a live unload, and I've spent as little as an hour there. So you're rolling the dice, you know, when you get there. But I've had more good luck with that receiver than bad luck. But this last time, it was still a constant battle with the broker. Like I rejected I placed a bid on their offer, on their posted rate, and then they countered with the exact same offer. Like, that's so annoying. It's so, I mean, come up $5, you know, at least play the game. But when you come back with the exact same rate, I was like, I rejected their counter offer, which was the exact same posted rate. It wasn't a bad rate. It was market rate. Don't get me wrong. But to counter the same exact posted rate, that got under my skin. So I said, I'm good. Sure enough,
Wait.
10 minutes.
So they had it posted for a certain rate, and then they tried to go lower than that?
So no. So I countered with my rate. It was like 150 more, 150, 250, 200, right. 200 more. They countered with the exact same posted rate. Didn't even come up. Not $5 at all. And so I was like, I let it go. And then, like I said, 10 minutes later, they called me back and straight called me and said, hey, I saw you put an offer on this load, would you consider this? And I said, honestly, no, because I know that I could spend either 8 hours there or 2 hours there. I'm rolling the dice. I don't know that. And he said, all right, I will do. He came up. So he ended up coming up almost the $200 to get the load ran for him. And so, not a big deal. It was cool. I get there, normal procedure. I go to check in and they're like, this load was supposed to be here 5 days ago. 5 days ago. And I'm like, what? That's never happened. I'm like, what the? I'm like, okay, let me call the broker. Took over 2 hours to even get a human on the line because it was a late drop. It was like a live load. It took a couple hours to finally get a hold of a human. They said, I explained to them the situation. They said, okay, we'll take care of it. They said they will call me back. Never called me back. And I knew after a couple hours, I wasn't going to get a phone call back. So I just went ahead and found a place to break down for the night, sat on that load, got up first thing in the morning, called him at 8, finally got a hold of the broker who booked the load with me and was like, explained to him the situation. And he's like, oh man, I'm sorry that happened. Took care of it then, right? But I ended up, that load cost me 3 days. It was an $850 load. And of course, he's like, hey, let's get all the detention information on the paperwork when you got there, what time you left, make sure they sign it, blah, blah. Took care of that. And, sent the paperwork to the broker and waited for them. He said several emails. I probably got 4 emails saying the exact same thing. I'm sorry, they're behind. We're working on it. Literally for almost for over 3 months now. So the issue is this happens all the time. Since the day I got in the industry, this what goes on in the industry. This is how this happens. Most carriers, they don't have the time, if they can remember, right? Because if you're a solo owner operator, you're doing literally everything. I'm not leased on. I have no one handling anything in my IFTA, my plates, my fuel, booking the load, picking up the load, doing I'm literally doing it all. So how many of these have fallen through the cracks? It's so easy. I can't even tell you how many have fallen through the cracks. But there's certain ones I will not let go because it just gets under my skin. Mm. And this was one of them. But again, I have another one that I'm dealing with that's over a year old. I had a shipper punch a hole in my trailer. And the contact who I was supposed to contact disappeared. Their email no longer works.
Of course.
And I've eaten that bill. Now, unless I physically go back to that shipper and start knocking on doors by hand, that's the only way I'll get a hold of anyone.
So how much was it? The detention?
Oh, it was it was a total of a day and a half's worth of downtime because of that load.
So you got a layover?
Oh yeah. So it wasn't just detention. Yeah, it was like a 2 days worth of layover.
Okay. All right. Yeah, and they you still haven't got it yet.
It's still the same response to every email. We're working on it. They're sorry, they're very behind. So really my question is if all these
Who's saying they're behind? Who's saying they're behind?
the broker is saying that they're behind on taking care of these detention requests.
That's bullshit.
Yeah. So here's the thing.
Sounds
So
like you
I
need
know
the
how,
new one.
how the hierarchy, how it all works, and I've seen it, and I've snuffed it. So
Well, because I was getting ready to ask you.
if I were you, I would call in there. Okay. Don't tell them who you are. Like, you can say your name. I don't care. But like, say you want to talk to the ops manager, director, whatever it is, get to the higher ups right away. Get them on the phone. Don't call in and talk about your situation or anything like that. Just get them on the phone and just explain it just like a normal person. Just act like everything's cool. Hey, and here's the other thing. If you want to get something done, really push the, hey, I really like you, even if you don't. I really like you guys. I want to move a lot of freight with you. I kind of want to become a carrier that we can work together with on this, and really push that, like, you're not mad, you're not upset or anything. That would be the first thing I would do, and I guarantee they'll take care of it for you. Now, they may end up saying, hey, who was it? What's the load number, all that stuff. So provide that, but at the same time, you get a hold of someone, they'll get it done immediately, because I guarantee that so they said it was 5 days late. Is that what you told me?
Yeah, that the original appointment. Yes, when I showed up,
so
they
it's 5
said it was
days late.
supposed to have been there
The load.
4 or 5
So
days
they're
ago.
already probably taking a loss on the load, right? So and I guarantee it's end of month, right? So it was end of month, right? So any more loss, any detention layover was going to eat even more into that loss, which their profit, right, and all that stuff. So I guarantee that's what the issue is. So I would get a hold of somebody that's higher up, go right around them, and just act as though, hey, listen, I'm trying to be cooperative. I want to be a carrier for you guys. I can almost guarantee that'll work.
Yeah, Lewis, let me ask you this. How well do you know this broker?
I don't.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
I don't.
And
I don't.
how long is the time frame?
Since what?
Since detention, all of this that you haven't been paid. How many weeks, months?
Well, technically, I could turn in the $850 rate con to my factoring company. If I do that, I'm pretty much going to lose out on that detention.
Yeah, but I'm saying
my factory.
Yeah, how long ago did this happen?
Oh, the load got delivered before I left the States.
Oh,
so it was just right. It was like a week before I left the States. So it was well over a month and a half ago, 2 months ago, almost at this point.
Okay, so there's two things that come to mind when something like that is. That broker probably billed exactly what you were looking for and kind of wrote you off, thinking that you weren't going to go after them. That's the first thing I can say, because any ethical broker out there would take care of his drivers and not leave you hanging out there. So that's a huge concern of mine right now. That
concern. I think it's the truth. I guarantee it's what happened.
Yeah.
Well, what's funny is also they're a massive company who this cab broker's for, and I mean, like,
this isn't the first rodeo they did for a carrier. I can tell you that right now.
They're industry leaders. This company that he works for.
But here's the thing:
they're huge.
And I've always said this: the bigger you get, right, the harder it is to control your culture. Okay, that's why I always say there are some stud Landstar agents. There are some stud TQL agents. They're there. The bigger you get, the harder it is to control your culture. All right. But I will tell you this: those discussions get brought up in leadership meetings. So get a hold of somebody there that's in leadership.
Yep.
Okay. Have a conversation with them, like you're just being. Hey, listen, tell them TJ Knudsen. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
No, you won't.
I'm writing that down.
but seriously though, do not, because I guarantee I know what he's doing. He's hoping you just don't get back with him. And listen, everybody needs held accountable. You got to follow through on this one, because you're not just going to get your money. You're going to teach him a lesson, and not, you don't have to do it in a negative way no. But at the same time, he's going to learn that, that, hey, and he may end up getting talked to by his leadership too. And it may end up making him a better broker at the end of the day, because sometimes you got to learn that.
And you might be fighting for somebody else's money tomorrow.
What's that?
True.
Right.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah,
and that
you're fighting for somebody else's money tomorrow.
And that's mainly like my kind of why I came out with the post on LinkedIn like I did, because I know I'm not the only one this happens to. Okay, every startup owner op gets taken advantage like this simply because they don't know. Brokers know, right? Those
yeah.
who do this often know that because they know the system. They understand it. They know how it works. But the reason why I threw it up on LinkedIn was because this was one I'm not letting go, because the first time it happened, TJ, and I told you about it, you called them out, like you knew right away who it was.
Yep.
The first time.
Yep.
So this is the second instance from that same mega, you know.
You got some mango in your teeth there or what?
I've been having to pick it out. That's why I got my.
I hate the fact that you're in a warm area and I was out in my driveway chipping ice off.
And you're,
I know, man. I
pulling out mango.
I keep complaining. I don't know if you can see out my window there, but
Yeah, it's
what we're
nice.
looking at.
Shut up.
Oh my God, Tony.
But
no,
hey,
I agree with you.
It's
something that I know, it's something that is so important. And these are why I follow through on things. And I put out a post the other day about hammer emails, like and dealing with carriers or brokers or whatever it is. And I almost always put a line in there saying that, like, hey, listen, we all need held accountable. I have been, and it's part of it. And in the future, you need to make sure this is a priority, because right now margins are slim. Okay. And especially if it was 5 days late, I guarantee he knew that. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
And at the end of the day, I try to give the benefit of the doubt from the standpoint of he's a young guy, probably new to it, doesn't understand these things or whatever. But if you could get that conversation going with leadership, they can start directing. Because I'm telling you, I've talked about it even during COVID. If leaders are preaching carrier sourcing, they better be preaching it now. You don't just preach it during the good times, right? Because I understand.
Yeah.
I've been under the gun. Where's your margin at? Where's your revenue at? How many loads you got on the board, right? And you got that pressure and you're pushed, right? And that's all you're thinking, okay, as a leader, especially too, right? But if you're preaching carrier sourcing, at some points, then you got to be preaching it at all points. And so if this is something that he's preaching, then hopefully follow. If not, then I tell you what, then and again, this is how you dictate your relationships. When I always talk about these people that come on LinkedIn, they bitch about brokers and they bitch about this and this. This is how you vet those who you work with, right? This is how you figure out, because you dictate your relationships after situations like this, right? Right? You stay calm, you get things handled, but then you also say, hey, listen, I'm not dealing with them again then, right? Because it just is what it is.
Right, right.
But
like you
never know. You could talk to the leader and he could say, hey, listen, if you want to continue to bid, I'm going to hook you up with our best guy. He's got freight out of here or whatever. He's going to take care of you. Who knows? He may direct you the other way. You never know what you're going to run into, but just approach it professionally. And in that way, and at least it's the last priority. If not, get me involved, honestly.
No, seriously. If not, you go to the shipper and you give them your card and they can call you directly and take out the broker.
Well, yeah, you got to be careful,
TJ. That's the way you do it.
I know, but that's last resort, yeah, for sure.
But like you said,
if they're going to hang out, dude.
This all honestly starts at the top with your leadership.
Yep.
If experience, those who have leadership roles and have experience, like you said, you are planning for the long game with the relationship you had with your carriers. That is so important. That is so vital, because that's how you retain. That's where your retention numbers come from. Guys, for example, like me, who had bad experiences with inexperienced brokers, if there weren't leaders like yourself in those realms, trying to pull that driver back because of a mistake a broker made simply because he was inexperienced, that's how you run through drivers and owner ops. You're just ripped through them. So it's really important that that leadership role has that vision and is able to teach that to the entire team, and teach them what it means to have such a relationship, to at least take care of them enough to keep them and try to keep that carrier relationship with that broker. Because as an owner op, we know we're not going to hit home runs every load. We know that. At least we should know that.
Right.
But sometimes you'll have to do it, hey, cut me some slack on this one load, but I'm going to take care of you on the next load. I can't tell you how many times you were so good at that, TJ. And that was huge in building that relationship. And that's how you built that relationship and trust. It was like you couldn't always give me $3, $4, $5 a mile loads, but when you would ask me for a favor, it was done. It was like, say less.
Yep. It's key. And it's hard. It's hard. So, in leadership, because you got to be able to push, as a leader too, because, I knew I needed to get this done right now. I'll take care of you on the next one thing, right? So I got to be able to justify that still too. I mean, so I had to make sure I was on top of my stuff, because at the end of the month I had to explain, hey, and I was talking directly to my owners too. So it wasn't anything more than the fact that, hey, why did you overpay on this load? Why did you overpay on that load? And I'd made sure, again, that I followed through on. I didn't just say I would do it. I followed through on getting you paid on the next one, but I also had documentation showing it. Hey, I called him at. I mean, it happened a couple times. On a Ford load, I called him at 11:30 p.m. to go recover this load and deliver it, and he did it, right? And he was the only option we had. And I told him I'd take care of him on the next one. This is what we ended up paying him. If you want to talk about protect times, you want to talk about chargebacks, this right here paid for it well over. And so I was able to justify that, right? So it wasn't just follow through with you; it was also with cover my own ass. But I knew what I could do and what I couldn't do. And so
and I did.
I
didn't want to. I didn't want to on that one, man. I'm not gonna lie. I was tired as hell. I was seriously like,
no,
no, I don't want to.
Go to your wife and say, she said it has to be this amount.
Well, yeah. We were in the, because I asked her. I said, babe, I don't want to go. I don't want to leave my house. Like I'm good. I go, babe, what do you think? I mean, because he might have a little money to throw in this. What do you think? She goes, well, if he says this, then go. And I guess he heard her. And I said, well, I need this much. And he goes, all right, I'll send it. And I was like, man, I was hoping you'd say no, not yes.
Well, I knew I was going to take care of you. I didn't want to show my hand either, because I'm eating that loss, man. I'm eating that loss. I got to explain it. But I heard her say the only way you're going to go, and you were my only option. I didn't tell you that at first, but when she said, hey, I need this much, you're going to have to make this much if you're going to leave the house. I'm like, done.
Yeah, because I didn't want to go. I didn't. Yeah. I was trying to convince her while I was on the phone with you. I'm like, I don't want to go. Look, I was like this. I was like, I don't want to go.
You see, Lewis, you know what? You had the opportunity to hit him up for another 200. You missed that.
But I just didn't want to go.
Well, I'll tell you this. I do remember the amount he wanted. Yeah, it was probably double what we had in it. So I will say that.
It was a very, very fair amount. Like I said, it was definitely enough to get me out of the damn house.
Well, Tony, I want you to touch on this. We've kind of dove in a little bit on this from the driver's side, what they deal with and whatnot. What do you see from? I know you made a comment on that post too, talking about how they should be able to be paid right there on spot, or all those types of things, right? And sometimes that's not possible, right? But
it's never possible. It's stupid. The system is bad the way it's designed, because we launder, just like double brokerage. It's almost the same with detention fees. Mm-hmm. People will take a chunk of that and not pass the 100% on, like a fuel surcharge. Not always does the 100% fuel surcharge get to the truck. Everybody takes a processing fee or whatever, and it's almost double brokering. The same idea, the same concept. You take one load from a load board, you put it on another load board, and you take your chunk and dish it out to somebody else, who then finds you a truck. You are, by definition, a double broker. As long as everybody on the food chain knows everybody's cut, it's perfectly legal.
Let me touch on that real fast, though, because here's the thing. I will say this. I've had customers who, in order to get these lanes contracted, to get them going, you had to be real competitive, right? And so you got those, right? And the reason you even got that freight is because you were competitive enough, at least, right? But I mean, I've had them where, if you pay a specific, no matter across the board, no matter what the account is, $40 an hour. Right? Is that sound about right, Lewis? Is that about what people are paying? $40 an hour, maybe 30, 35?
Yeah, between 25 to 50.
25, fuck.
After what free time?
But here's the thing. I had shippers paying 80 to us. Okay.
Wow.
But the difference was I had shippers that didn't pay anything. So what it did was, yes, on some of those where they paid $80 an hour, yes, we still paid 40. And they knew that up front, though, right? So they knew it up front in the rate kind of at any rate, we took care of them. But there was also ones in which in the rate kind of said $40 an hour, and our shipper wasn't paying us anything. So
that's totally different. You're being completely forthright up front, and it's in the documentation, right? That's totally different.
All right.
I'm talking about the idea of a double broker where it's hidden.
Okay. That makes sense.
So as a driver, I've been paid detention. As a shipper, I've paid detention. Not very much, because we do it right, but sometimes shit happens, and that's what it's for. But the idea is to compensate a guy for his time. that isn't being paid. And let me tell you something. As a driver, if you're working for a company, and maybe not like a Lewis where you're getting that money direct, which I think you don't know this, Lewis, yet, but if you start billing each job that you do as a separate entity, then you'll learn this. But detention pay for a driver is literally like $5-10 an hour max. That's really all you're gonna get. At the end of the day, that's your net. That's what a driver's actually gonna get. Because usually you give away 2 hours free. Maybe you get $50 for the third hour. What's that? You know,
Yeah, exactly.
like $18 an hour. Take some taxes out of that.
Well, yeah, I've had to run, run different loads, do my pricing, but based off all that, because I know if I can at least have a sweet spot on a rate, it would be enough to justify if I get no detention. But it's always a gamble whether or not I can make that happen, or I have a relationship set up with that customer. Most of the time I'm trying to gain his relationship and their business, so I end up eating that at first because I need to get my foot in that door.
As a driver, as a recovering driver, I say that because I have relapses, but as a recovering driver, I know what it's like to have to sit there and wait when you're told one thing and the reality is something totally different. I've been in your shoes, man. I hold steel. I mean, that ought to be right there. That's it's nuts, man. You get in line and there's people cutting you in line and they're cutting tires and everything else. And geez.
Yeah, I can. I've done coiled steel, but not on a flatbed. It's worse for flatbed life than it is for drive-in.
Yeah.
Way worse.
Oh, yeah.
I just personally,
yeah,
I wouldn't do it just because I'd lose too much money doing that. I literally.
Again, the good drivers, and being an owner operator, Tony always talks about this, is a lot different than a company driver. It's something you got to take full responsibility for. And like what Lewis said too, how many times I've heard guys like, hey, if I'm going into this receiver or this shipper, I'm gonna need this rate because I may not get to 10. I know for a fact it's going to be 3 hours. I'm not going to bug you or anything, but I got to be at this rate. And it's funny because some people don't want to latch on to that, but I've talked to a lot of shippers. That's the capacity these shippers are looking for.
Yep.
It's funny. I have some really, really smart guys I talk to, and they talk about how, the reason we use brokers is because, we differentiate, we justify it to our leadership, right? We don't just let them say, hey, we can only have assets, because we want to get to that capacity that's there, those 2, 3, 5 truck carriers, right? Or the single owner operators. And the only way to do that is through a broker, right? But the thing is that because a lot of those, if they're going to survive, if they're going to make it, they got to be able to do that. They got to be able to differentiate those things and what's going to make them money and how they're going to, and sometimes the only person they answer to is their wife, right? So they're going to do whatever they could do that week to make sure they get home. Tony, when we drove back from meeting Diana that night, I thought it was great. You were telling me about when you were a driver running steel, you knew if you got X amount, you worked from, whatever time to whatever time at night. And you knew if you got a certain amount of loads, and they were local runs, right? They weren't very long.
No, 15 miles.
Yeah. If you got a certain amount of runs in that night, you made a certain amount. So you would pull in and the guy wouldn't be ready on the crane. You go work the crane. Right? What were you doing on that?
So I would unload myself. I had we had a door opener and I had a key, obviously, because I worked there, and we would leave at all hours of the day and night. But the guys, we would shuttle coils between buildings and on a shuttle truck, and the guy that ran the shuttle truck would run the crane. And then if he's in there, you're stuck. If he goes to lunch when the truck's in the door, I would move his truck out. I would jump in back mine in, shut the door, leave his truck running so it would stay nice and toasty outside for him. I would run my coil, put it on the scale for him to cut the sample and weigh and put away, check in and do the receiving portion of it. Then I would pull my truck out, pull his back in, and then boogie and get back on the other side of town. But then he comes back, my coil's unloaded, my paperwork's done. I just saved myself an hour. That 5 or 10 minutes, you get in there to the other end, 5 minutes before lunch, you're golden. You get in there 5 minutes into lunch, you sit for an hour. That little bit of extra, I had the ability to do that because I worked there and I was trained on the overhead crane. I'm running a 70-ton crane, and you can't do that everywhere. But what you can do is control the controllables, right? So what I tell owner operators to do, I have good friends that do the same thing that you're doing, Louis. I know a little bit about factoring. I don't know all the details. I would try and put as much money as you're putting in factoring into a savings account to eliminate your factoring. And it's going to take a year because you can't do it tomorrow. You have to build up that bank enough to self-factor. And then you keep a spreadsheet with all of your invoices, and then you can mark them off full, paid and complete, what you still owe and all that. But I mean, no one's going to do it for you, man. You got to do all of that.
Yeah, no, it's funny you say that, because that's exactly how I started and how I ended up a year and a half ago. A year and a half ago, I didn't need my factoring company. I didn't need them anymore.
Right.
The purpose for them when I started was because I couldn't afford to wait 90 days to get paid.
Mm-hmm.
I would have lost the business. I would have lost it just as fast as I got in it.
Yeah.
Right. So, you know, a 2% was dropping the bucket to not deal with the headache of the invoice and knowing I would get paid in 24 hours. Great factoring company. I would recommend them to anybody. They're awesome. But I built my capital up to a point where I stopped sending them invoices. I could afford to wait 30, 60 days. And typically 30 days was the max I was waiting to get paid, for the checks to start coming in for some of these customers. So
but then the market turns and now you're waiting 90.
Yeah. And that's pretty much what happened. And so I still, you know, kept and have held on to my factoring company, you know, simply because they don't charge me unless I send them an invoice. So
you're doing it right, brother.
And it only costs me, if I don't send them an invoice for a month, it only costs me $500, and I'm not in a contract.
Right.
Those are two really huge things when getting into a factoring company. Some of them won't tell you that you're locked in for a year, and if you want to get out of it or break it early, it's salty. It could be $2 to $3 grand.
Yeah.
And that's what made me choose the factoring company I went with. You know, I'll shout them out. Truck Stop Factoring. They're awesome.
Are they local or is that a national deal?
Truck Stop's national. They're load board. Truck Stop.
Cool. Yeah, truckstop.com.
Truck Stop, yeah.
Yeah.
It was between them and RTS when I started. And I didn't go with RTS simply because we're going to lock me into a year contract. And Truck Stop was a month-to-month contract and a $500 to break it early if I couldn't generate enough revenue for the month. Mm-hmm. Which I've never had a problem since I've been with them. That's never been an issue.
That's awesome. And you're really smart for doing that. So that's cool. I advise everybody that I talk to that's in the owner operator business to do that. But one of the ways I like to help keep track of detention time in the first place, so you don't have to worry about factoring and getting paid up front, is the load dock ready right now? Right. I don't call a truck until I have a load. And that's just because I'm a truck driver. Right. I don't want to call in a load and then have a guy come in here and sit. We did call in a load that we knew wasn't going to be done until lunch. Our lunch was at 12:15. We booked the truck to pick up between 1 and 3. The guy shows up at 10 a.m. and at 11:30, 2 more trucks had come and gone, and he's all in there mad. And I'm like, I showed him the bill of lading with the booking, the tender to pick up at 1, and suddenly he was fine. Right. He was all good then. But, he sees other trucks coming in and out, but the broker never told him that 1 o'clock's a pickup. He just told him to get his butt in there and get loaded.
Yep.
Well, we knew it wasn't ready. I am fully transparent on the load. I don't ever want someone to blame me for detention. I'll tell you when we're going to have detention, because I'm going to be straight and honest with you, because I'm a driver. I'm a driver who loads trucks.
Mm-hmm.
And
because as a broker too, when you do that, there's times in which, it's an important one, right? It's a noon pickup and you put it as 11 a.m., right? Instead of noon. But that's a little bit extreme. But I'd also, say, as a driver, like you go off of the rate con, right? It's not the BOL. So that guy hopefully went after detention, because if his rate con said 10 a.m. and he was on time,
the clock's on, the clock starts, man.
So for you, if you're signing those bills, I would make sure you write in there 10 a.m. in, 2 p.m. out, sign Anthony Darnell, drayage guy, and
good cameras,
because he's going to have a legit thing there. And so, I think, Jeff, you talk a lot about the efficiency at shippers, and I think we go a lot into depth on those things. And Tony, your operation's a little bit different than some of these bigger ones. from the standpoint of you've got more control. I think there's, you've got your local drivers too, right? And I think obviously just your mindset in general compared to what some of these, people you go to deal with a Walmart, something like that, their hands are tied. They got nothing. They can't do shit except exactly what they're told to do. And if they don't, they're replaceable. But
and as a shipper, let me say this, because I've always said this, and you guys will all know this. There are more bad shippers than good out there.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Definitely.
And so Jeff, going a little bit on what, when you, if you're thinking, accessorials, and what you could do as a broker, when it comes to the shipper side and what the benefit of a shipper, bigger one too, especially, how do you approach that conversation? What do you see?
It's funny because I just had that conversation today, and I always wear a shipper's hat constantly all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a reason for that. And I operated in very large operations. I love it. I'm not a transactional kind of broker at all. I'm a dedicated one. That's all I deal because it's easier to handle. Number one. Number two, I know how to break down that invoice really well, where when I do business with my clients, I do it as a shipper. I don't do it as a broker because I only demand what I would demand from my carriers if they were working for me. So it's a total different approach. Number one, fuel surcharge is fuel surcharge, no margin on top. I used to break it down all the time, and I used to say, listen, if you're going to give me that invoice, I want to know what my fuel is for that. You can go off the DOA or TIA, whatever you want to use. That is the fuel you're going to charge me for that week. Here's the base. If you want to do a cost plus program, that's fine. At least I know what the base is, and I understand that you need X amount of money on top of that to manage my account. And if I was going to pay individual, I'm probably going to pay a hell of a lot more than what I would, because I'm not buying a person. I'm buying a team who's going to do all this crap for me that I don't have to, and my desk is wiped clean. So accessorials are accessorials for me. I never put anything on top of it. If it's $60 an hour after 2 hours, it's $60. If it's 42% fuel on top, it's 42%, because you're not paying 42% if you put a margin on top of that. Number one, okay, it goes up quite a bit. And guess what? Why should you make money on the driver's side? The driver is deserving of that fuel, whatever it is. You shouldn't make points on that at all. And if you got $150 lift gate, you don't charge $250.
Everybody does.
Keep $100 in your pocket, right?
There's accounts that people, that's all they're making their profit on is fuel.
No, I mean, because it's unethical. It is absolutely unethical.
Do you tell the driver these things?
Absolutely. And you know what?
And that gives you that return. So when I first started dispatching, I was just dispatching. And what I loved about Circle when we dispatched, and it made us hungry, is that we actually made commission as a dispatcher. I got like 2% of what I built as an overtaker and 2% of what I covered, right? So when I'm doing $400,000, and that's all revenue, right? Because we only put our owner-operator a certain percentage. Sure. I would tell them that because I wanted them to know that, like, hey, that means I'm fighting for every penny I can get you, right? So that's how they really grew trust. Was like, I just want you to know I'm making commission off you. What does that mean? That means the more revenue I put on you, the more money I make, right? And so, like, you would tell them that because it gives them that. I think, even in this world, right? I mean, like, and what you're saying is you're letting them know that how much more likely is that guy going to want to come? How much does that set you apart when it comes to like repeat carriers?
Yeah, and that's exactly what happens. Is like you share that information with the owner or the operator, bro. We're gonna be like Starsky and Hutch.
Yeah,
so check this out, right? And I know that there's a ton of brokers that don't do it. You can't see this in detail. This is a 50 to 60 point checklist that I go over with my customers. That before I even move freight, I don't want to talk about freight. I want to know about your operations. There's everything that you need to know on this, and this is shared with my carriers. They know everything about my customer. There's no hidden. It's all transparent. They know what kind of truck and trailer they go in there. They know the hours of operation at every single facility, who the main contacts is, the operator, you name it. It's all in here. And that's the only way to do business, because I'm a shipper. I'm not a broker. I wear that hat daily. And I always, when I have a big customer I'll fly out, I'll sit down with them, and we'll go over the nitty gritty. You know, here's the expectations that I'm expected from you. I want to know what yours is. Okay. If I meet yours, you're going to meet mine. Okay. Because it's going to be completely congruent. There's no hidden agenda. There's not going to be excuses or anything like that. If you tell me that there's a time that's going to pick up, I'm going to be there to pick up. But if it's not ready at that time, here's the accessorial list. This is what we're going to be charging. Just everything you need to know, man. That's the way that I do business, because that's the only way that I dealt with my carriers. And believe me, you can talk to carriers that I've worked with. They enjoyed it because I had no hidden agenda, man. I told them exactly what they would expect.
There needs to be more people that are transparent.
Yeah, I'm saying like floor load, right? Some guys will just say, not even tell it's floor load, and they'll be going there to expect a pallet load. It's like, what the hell, you know?
Yeah.
It's terrible.
Yeah. What Tony said is transparency in our industry. I think it is really going to be the only way we'll get the next generation to buy in to this
preach
industry.
It every day, my friend. I do it. It's just so many. Listen, I've lost big, huge deals because of unethical brokers out there that gave a bad name. And when I was about to sign a deal, I went to another person, and the person said, I will never do business with that company because they screwed me over. And I'm like, I'm preaching. I'm not that person. They don't speak for me. Check my profile, go dig, see if I'm congruent, see if I have the background, the experience to take care of your needs and expectations. You make the decision. I'm not chasing you anymore. You know, that's fine. I hope you do that with everybody that you deal with. And if they fit into your bucket, good, man, then you're doing your job. And that's what you're supposed to do as a shipper.
Yep.
Yeah. I feel if we keep, bringing awareness to this and the shift that should happen in this industry to keep that next generation interested in doing trucking, because I forget what the percentages are, but it's like they aren't impressive numbers for people who are interested to get in this field from either side, let alone, especially from the driver's side. It's not like they're chomping at the bits of go get their CDL, because of the liabilities that fall in it. It can become a great life, to provide for your family, but at the same time, it's just a crap ton of risk. But if we keep, drawing attention to or awareness to creating transparency and honesty and decency, there's enough, pie for everybody. Literally, there really is. There's like no need to be dishonest or deceitful in this business. Well, there isn't.
Yeah, something, Luis. What's really concerning to me is when I see pictures of shippers that have a freaking cage around the door to the office. It's like these drivers aren't fucking apes, okay? Seriously, why do you treat them as such? You got a bench there. You don't even give them water. You don't even let them use the facilities to go to the bathroom.
I can tell you why that happens, because if that guy comes in and he's a little bit pissed off and there's crap wiped all over your bathroom walls, we got to clean that. I'll tell you why that happens, because drivers like to walk in
the first place, though.
Drivers like to walk in and wander around in the shop looking for the guy that's going to help them. I mean, I've caught guys out on the production line flip-flops and shorts where we got to wear steel toes and safety glasses. They don't care. If there were more drivers,
I hear you.
If there were more drivers that would follow the sign, stay in the railing, go up to the office,
I agree.
Then we wouldn't have to do that. But I'm telling you, I'm all for that. Block them in.
Yeah, that's
no option.
Then that's our fault for not choosing the right carrier and the trainers who train their drivers and stuff. The protocol of dealing with certain ones.
No.
That's the problem.
We'll get to that because that's a two-way street.
Absolutely.
I've seen both sides.
Yep.
And there's nothing more I can stand than when I see drivers destroying these places, like this stuff that you disgusting, man. You don't do.
Yeah.
You just don't do. But that's the fault of the drivers. That's
right.
They created that whole concept of caging in an animal. There's other shippers and receivers I go to who they don't, it's not like that because they have posted signs and the drivers that go there know how it works. They know they're respected and vice versa.
Hey,
But a
Lewis,
lot of
you might know this from Hall and Steel. There's a place around here in over in the edge of Ohio that you can't even get on a flatbed trailer that you own in their yard and strap down or tarp without fall protection, harness, hard hat. You know
Oh
what I'm
yeah,
talking about, TJ? And the restaurant down the street will rent you all this stuff because nobody else does that. And you know why they do that? The same reason they do this cage thing at some shippers, because somebody sued them.
yeah, because probably an unprofessional driver showed up in flip flops with nothing on and couldn't speak English. Like,
And
come
somebody
on.
sued them, and then they had to take those
Yeah,
preventative measures to keep that from happening again. So I'm not saying the guys that put the cage up are bad. I'm just saying I know why they did that. It's the hot
right.
coffee warning at McDonald's, man.
Exactly.
And I see it two different ways, because when I manage like
Exactly.
multi-million-dollar transportation spend, I never had that, because it's up to us as shippers to kind of go through them and to find out the good ones from the bad ones. Because listen, I used to say to the drivers, you need to have a dress code, clean shaven, a company shirt on, because guess what? You fucking represent just not me, but the company you're holding a freight for. And I put those things in there. So am I afraid not to say that to somebody? If I'm giving somebody $100 million, you bet your sweet ass that they better listen to what I say if they want that.
Anybody can print up a couple of T-shirts now.
No,
Yeah, here's
no,
You
I'm
can't do that with
company shirts. If it's a respectable carrier, they're going to give their drivers shirts to wear, because it tells a story about the carrier doing business with.
But not every broker.
Jeans are fine. Proper work attire is fine.
Yep.
But they represent not just the company they work for, but the company they're pulling the freight for.
Absolutely.
Seriously. So,
and that's true, but it's not every broker can do that though. Not everybody has the freight to be able to do that, to be able to find carriers.
I got it, and that's a chance that they take.
Right, and it is, and it's a chance that a lot of them take because you have to. But the main thing is having that in your rate con, right? Making sure that it's clear. Because I remember, and I'll throw it out. I remember, Exxon Mobil, some of these bigger ones. I mean, big ones. I mean, it was flip flop. No flip flops, no this, no shorts, no pets. However, they had a spot. One thing, hey, credit to Exxon Mobil. They had a spot where there was like a dog park almost, where you could drop your dog off if you wanted to go in and get loaded or unloaded, or whatever it was, or tie him up, whatever you wanted to do, if that was a thing, right? So there's ways, but you had to communicate that, right?
Absolutely.
Those lines of communications were important, because you had to do that with me. I was picking up steel somewhere, and you were like, no shorts, no sandals. You need a hard hat, you need a vest. They're just real strict. It was down in Kentucky. I remember going in there. It was a really clean steel plant down there, and I had to pull into the building. They shut the door, and I couldn't walk out of my truck without my hard hat. And
we provided
jeans.
a lot of that, didn't we? We provided that for you, right? A lot of it.
You provided what the.
Like the vest and the.
Well, you asked me first if I had it before I went to the pick.
Right.
Not question asked.
As a company, did we provide that for you as a company or no?
You did. You asked. I had it already.
Yeah.
I think you offered it, and I said I already have it. I'm good. I have it in the truck.
Right. Yeah.
But I had to. That was a case
Still
where I had to change.
Right?
Because in those cases, you find out the hard way. You walk out of the truck. Some of those loaders, they'll wave you back in your truck, like this.
Yep.
Like.
Yep.
Get out of here. Like, that's it. They won't even talk to you. They'll just be like, go.
That's the main thing. And again, we've talked, we keep saying, it comes down to leadership, and Brandon Bay, man, what he said the other day about, freight's easy, people are hard, and so, Jeff, you guys, everybody should try to work to where Jeff's at. Jeff is able to control what he does because it's Jeff. Right. And so, and Tony's got control, and Lewis, but some of us, we got to be able to control these young guys, these people that don't get it and don't understand it, and why it's important, because it just doesn't seem like it's that important.
It comes down to the trainers that bring these kids on board, that they hustle them through the process. Look at Scott Watanabe. Okay. He has a 12-week training period. All right. They go through, you know, what do you call it?
Like a boot camp or
Yeah, like the playbook or whatever. I'll be the shipper, you be whatever, you know. Here's the no from this guy, here's the yes. How do you do it? They just don't say, here's the computer, here's a book of leads, start making phone calls. I mean, because there's some people that do it. They just
right.
eat them up and spit them out, you know, and
Yeah.
then, and if you know what I mean, they're screwed for their life because they have the non-solicit, you know, non-competes and all this other kind of stuff because they don't give a crap. But the ones that are very successful are going to sit them down. They're going to coddle them. They're going to walk them through the process. They're going to be open to questions and they're going to answer them honestly. And then guess what? They're going to find diamonds in the rough. It's not meant for everybody, but those people that are treated well, they're going to stay there and they're going to do a damn good job.
Yeah.
The ones that get trained,
And
where they go.
the other thing is too, though, it's not just leadership as in, you know, your directors, your managers, your ops managers, because a lot of times, you know, your top producers are the ones that are promoted to that, right? And then all they know is you know, book and freight, right? They want people to do it kind of their way or, you know, whatever. And they're not great. Training, I'll always say, is the biggest hurdle in this industry, and it always will be, right? Yeah. It comes down to leadership even higher than that, because the biggest thing is how much pressure are you putting on these guys to immediately produce, right? And not just immediately produce themselves, but have their people immediately produce. And if that's all they know, if they should do their job and they're only judged on exactly what I just said, then those conversations, those things don't happen. I used to have to fight that all the time. I don't know how many times I sat and was, you know, seen as though maybe I wasn't as fast in things. You know, over time it showed. It was funny. You know, I had the chance to do that, but how much I was pushed when I said, "Hey, you got to have patience. If you want this to, I'm not going to be like this other office or this other where the turnover is high and we're losing. I can develop this person. I can see it, but they got to do it right." Because, and I tell them, you know, this is what you preach to me, right? But when things start going and things are busy, it's hard. It's hard to do. You know, again, freight is easy. People are hard. And
well,
so that's what
TJ, though.
I put it out the other day. I put the other day about doing the right thing. Fight it because it's going to happen. I'm telling you now.
The thing with that, TJ, is that it's quantity over quality. Period. End of discussion.
Right.
We've got to hit those numbers at the end of the month. I don't care what the hell you have to do. Start hitting those phone calls, making those 1,000 calls a month, and hopefully, you know, you'll hit something and find that diamond in the rough. But if they find quality over quantity, they have better results. They really do.
What happens is though, as a company scales, okay, and I've been a part of this, man. I've been through all of this. As a company scales, those at the top start, you know, they start having more resources. At the beginning, you know, their owners, right? They're talking amongst themselves, and they used to do freight, and they know it, and they value that. Once it starts really scaling, and they look at, hey, how do we continue to grow this? Their mindset isn't on that as much as it is what do we do to continue to grow this? And those, you know, what they're doing then is that quantity over quality. So that's where I'm saying it comes down to that middle management. It's so important if you take a role, if you get promoted to be that and explain it just like you would anything, right? So if I got a bid higher on a load, I explain why, right? I justify it, right? So they can go and justify to who they need to justify it to, right? So you got to be able to stand your ground and be strong on that, because at the end of the day, and explain why you're a bigger asset to them to do that than anything else, because their mindset is going to go away from that, right? They're pulled, you know, some of these owners, some of these guys are making those decisions to do that because they're the ones that make the decision to go quantity over quality. It just is what it is. And that's how they scale. But they still have those roots in them, right? They have those freight roots in them. They don't own a company or come from somewhere where they weren't booking freight at one point, right? So justify why you're doing what you're doing, but stand your ground. And I'm telling you guys, it's hard. And I have sat in some meetings in which, you know, I've got, you know, upset because they just didn't understand what the hell I was trying to say. And Luis, you know what I'm talking about. I've talked to you, I've vented to you about things like this, you know, because they didn't understand, you know, that this needs done this way. And again, like I said at the beginning of the show, it may have hindered, you know, speed in which my career went or how much money I made, but I would have never got to the position. I would never have had the knowledge I have now if I wouldn't have done it that way. That's how important it is. And if you want to make this a career, you got to do it. And it starts with middle management. I don't care if you're just a pod leader or you're an operations manager, or you're a director of a whole division, step up and make sure you stand your ground and make sure you know why you're justifying it to your leadership. Don't just do it and then sit back and let them pound you on it. Because
you got to have your finger on the pulse in that
Because
obligation.
Because if not, you could go be like Jeff, or you could go be like that. But are you ready for that yet?
right.
And if you're not, then you better stand your ground.
Yeah, because whatever you do teach your people, they will mirror. Whatever you don't teach your people, they will also mirror.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a lot of what you don't teach that they mirror that ends up being wrong.
And you think people say, hey, what I do won't make the industry better or whatever. Think about this. How many people that you started working with do you still work with in this industry? Because it's going to, there may not be a way for this other person to move up. He may go to another role. There's turnover. There's all these different things, right? That you don't decide as middle management. But what you teach them, they go to the next company, right? And so the things you do and the things you preach and things you teach, and I'm very passionate about this. This is why I put content out. It's why I do what I do, and it's why I've been able to continue to grow and succeed, and why I even honestly am good at sales, because I preach this to the people that I talk to, my customers, about doing things the right way and how we do them, because it's so easy not to do it, and it pisses me off when I see and I still know there are companies that have leadership at the very top that push the wrong things. And then they want to go online and they want to talk about how good of a company they are and how they do all these things. Yeah. It's all bullshit. Because at the end of the day, if you want to make a difference, do it at the level you're at. Because I'm telling you right now, it'll make a difference. I have people that still text me to this day that I managed 5 years ago that say, TJ, you taught me everything I know. I got to this point because of this. I can name a couple of them right now. But it's one of those things that if you want to be able to wake up in the morning and love what you do and love this industry, that's why you do what you do.
Exactly. You got to work from the bottom up, not from the up down,
I think that's where the, we'll touch on Jason with Lowboy Industries, his post where he talks about having empathy in this industry. Empathy is what builds relationships. It isn't money. I'm going to tell you right now, it isn't money.
Nope.
It's literally caring enough about the next person, what they're doing, what you're doing, and being honest. Absolutely. Like a little bit of empathy goes farther than cash does in this industry.
It's what's called being human and having that human nature.
Literally, we're all human.
You're trying to build a relationship. You're not trying to destroy one and sound like a freaking machine, or monotone. Or scripted,
right.
It's all bullshit. I mean, seriously, it really is.
It's not instant gratification. It's not instant gratification, and that's what right now there's such a push for that we need it right now. And again, it's because people are answering other people. I get it, right? So justify what you're doing, but it's not instant gratification, right? It may not happen until down the road, but I tell you right now, if you do it, you're going to make more money in the long run, and you're going to have people notice it. And people will come. Because I will tell you even from a customer standpoint, some of those people that were just load planners back in the day, some of these customers I used to work with, that just used to email me to cover freight, they're running the show now, right?
Yep.
People move up. They don't just stay where they're at. Tony, you know exactly what I'm about, right?
Yeah, I was a driver.
Tony's not done where he's at, right? It's the only reason I'm friends with him. I'm just kidding. No, but what I'm saying though is that it happens, right? So, but he wouldn't even work with me or do anything with me if I didn't have those ethics and those things, and those make a difference. They don't make a difference right now, or that they may not seem like they're making a difference right now, but down the road, I'm telling you they will, because you're going to call up, and you're going to need that, right? And they're going to be there and say, TJ, I remember what you did before. Hey, I'm making the decisions now. I want you on board.
Hey, when I hit the big time, you can have all my drayage.
Thank you. Oh man,
there's hope.
Stevedore Steve back in college, man. But no, I think, hey, we're getting we're right at 6. So we're in and out. Whoops, we may already be ending. But I think this is the conversation it's all about, right? Leadership. Yeah. But leadership isn't just if you're considered a leader, what your title is. Lead by example. Because I'm telling you, when sitting on the floor, that's why I always had a floor desk, even when I had an office. Because your example, when you're on the floor and everybody's doing these things and people are flying around, it spreads. And the culture.
And you must first lead yourself.
Yep. The culture on the floor, right? It's so easily pushed to the negative side, right? The people that want to take too long breaks and bitch about things and everything, right? That's so easy to join that clique, right? But when you make, especially, even at middle management, you make it more cool or more of a thing to do the right thing and whatever it is, even if you're not considered a leader or your title isn't there, it's gonna get noticed. Do it.
Have a good weekend, guys.
All right, guys.
See you next
Yeah.
week, fellas.